Hi, this is Ruby Wax, and I'm sorry I can't be with you tonight. I know people say that, and you never believe them, but please believe me, I'm really sorry I can't be there tonight. The event is Silence of Suicide, and it was inspired by Michael, who lost his daughter Anna. I'm really passionate about this because there is such a taboo about talking about certain things, and only if we talk out loud can something be done. Part of the problem is that people who are so distressed are too ashamed to come out and talk about it. So they're going to show you a little film now on the topic. I hope it gives you food for thought. It starts a conversation going, and thank you for coming because this really opens it up. And this is really probably the most important thing you can be listening to.
My name is Michael Mansfield. I'm a barrister, and my daughter Anna took her life 6 weeks ago.
My name's Clark Carlisle, and I'm a survivor of 2 suicide attempts.
My name's Stephen Simblett. I'm a barrister. First, my stepson took his own life, and then nearly a year ago, my wife also took her own life.
My name's Harriet, I'm 25. My dad committed suicide when I was 11.
My name is Carlo, and my wife Anna committed suicide 6 weeks ago.
Complexity is kind of the word I'd use. There's usually sort of not one reason why someone might feel suicidal or even take their own life. It's likely to be a number of factors.
We know that depression plays a huge factor. But what people don't know about depression is that what depression does, it gives people an enormous concentration upon the present. It means to say they think of their present troubles as somehow enduring forever.
My second attempt was definitely an example of when depression takes hold. Because depression took hold and took me to a point where I believed that that everyone in my family, the whole world, would be better off if I wasn't here. It wasn't escapism, it wasn't running away, it was an honestly held belief that everyone would be better off without me.
I don't think my wife, like probably most of the suicidal people, they don't want to take their life, but they're sort of struggling with the internal struggle to leave. The pain that they feel is so, overwhelming and unbearable that the decision is just taken for them.
I think she wanted to resolve it all. She wanted she wanted peace of mind, and I'd hope that we might be able to talk that through. But the idea that she wanted to end it, no. I think of many people I know, other members of the family for a start off, but I mean other people I know. It never occurred to me. Her mind was obviously shifted. And what is a normal mind? I don't know exactly what a normal mind is, but she took a decision.
I think there was a difference between the position in which my stepson was and the difference in which with my wife, because after Roshan died, her life became almost unmanageable and unlivable, and I think that she did her very best to struggle on, but ultimately took perhaps not an informed decision, but one that was an unsurprising decision in terms of how she felt. In relation to Roshan, my stepson, I think that the position was different. I think that he was ill.
How do you deal with it? Because you have the feelings of anger, you have the feelings of guilt, you have the feelings of impotence, you want to rerun history, you want it all back again. I was sort of banging furniture and, you know, I was using expletives. Shit, you know, how could you do this? How? Why? To anger. And then there's grief. And then there's everything come tumbling in. You start questioning yourself and you're walking around in circles, mental circles as well, as to work out, you know, why on earth? Why at this moment?
When Roshan died, I found it immediately very difficult. I lost a lot of confidence. I lost a lot of confidence in my ability to do my work and so on. I took time off work. I was also, in effect, a carer for my wife, who had found him and was totally unable to feel anything but responsibility for his death, when in fact she had no responsibility for his death.
I can't forget Anna. I can't think about anything else but what happened. And I know that it will take a long time for me to get over.
I wasn't angry when I was 11, but I think when I reached my teens, I became quite angry about it, and disappointed, and kind of felt like, why would you choose to take yourself out of my life?
It hurts us because we feel, well, to some extent, we were in charge of those alternatives. We had some part to play in those alternatives. Why didn't we give them better alternatives? Why didn't we give them that chance, this chance? All that assumes that the person who tries to kill themselves or succeeds in killing themselves is rationally looking at all these alternatives. Once we take away some of that rationality from the person who's committed suicide, the strain on ourselves, I think, is reduced.
Sadly, there's still so much stigma around talking about sort of emotions quite generally, but particularly suicidal feelings. It can be quite scary to experience them, let alone to say that to someone else. And often sharing suicidal feelings, the other person might feel scared or shocked.
I don't like using the term suicide. When I always say that they died. If somebody asks, I always tell them, and I always give them but I, in a sense, one of the problems that you find in this situation, and I think that is a problem that's probably common to most bereaved people, that in a sense you feel yourself protecting the feelings of others, because others, you know that they've taken their lives, or you know that they died in a self-inflicted way, that others may not know that, or may want to know, and then they look really shocked because they are uncomfortable at dealing with it, and then you find so one of the additional burdens, I think, that people in this situation bear is trying to protect the emotions and feelings of others to whom they speak.
I think people should be a lot more open to speak about it. Obviously, you don't want it to be sort of dinner party chat every time you go and sit with people. It's not, you know, but I don't think it should be a morbid subject. Even today, when I was telling people what I was doing today, I was a bit sort of like, because it's a new job and things, they were like, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, I'm going to be filmed for this amazing documentary. And they were like, what is it? And I was like, well, it's a bit morbid. And then I was like, why am I saying that? That's ridiculous. Why should you say something like that?
I know there is a big stigma attached to, especially to suicidal survivor, but you know, I think sharing is a way to go forward.
I believe that suicide is so taboo because of the mystery surrounding it. If you're a family bereaved to suicide, you have no answers. You have no answers whatsoever. So you search within yourselves, you search within your relationships, you search within what could I have done, what should we have done, how did we not know? You ask all these questions. And it's so hard to get away from personalising it and saying it's something that I should have done different. You know, so you try and talk about the shame and the guilt that comes with that. It's nigh and impossible. It's nigh and impossible. So then how can we expect to talk about it as a society when we can't talk about it as individuals? You know, it's so hard. But it's of paramount importance. It's imperative that we do this. It's imperative that we do this.
I'm a lawyer. I started practicing in 1967. 6 years before, in the United Kingdom, one of the last remaining countries, suicide was a crime. It still is a crime if you assist somebody to commit suicide, and the word commit is interesting because in the context of crime, you commit a crime. So you see why the word commit suicide is linked to a crime. Now we have to slough that off. It's still there. And it was worse than being viewed as a crime. You weren't allowed to be buried on hallowed ground. You were dumped outside, if you like, the walls of the city, on common ground, with an unmarked grave, and your family forfeit their property. That's how bad it was. Now, we may all be unconscious of that history, but it actually has percolated through generations and generations. And I think to some extent, that's why there's still a taboo and a stigma.
If you are worried about someone and are worried that perhaps they are suicidal, one of the biggest things you can do is to create a space to talk. Sometimes people are frightened that talking about it will lead to more people kind of thinking about it, but actually that's not the case. It's okay to actually ask, are you having thoughts of suicide? You won't be making them feel worse by asking that. It might be quite a relief for them to hear that. And if they do say that yes, that is something they're experiencing, then that's an opportunity to talk to them about options for support, places they can go. But one of the things you would have done there is just showing them that it's normal to feel these things sometimes, and you're not judging them, and you're there for them, and that in itself can be very powerful.
I know from experience that when you're in that place, it is one of the hardest things to do, is to open up, because the illness itself, it isolates you. It makes you believe that no one wants to hear. It makes you believe that you have no one to talk to, and it perpetuates itself and it festers within. Now, at that moment in time, how do you encourage people to talk? You encourage people to talk by normalizing this. Normalize it. The stats tell us 1 in 4 are suffering from mental health disorder or illness in some capacity. I think that's far, far off the mark. Because how many people know what they're going through? When I came to the fore in football and talked about my journey, I had so many players come to me and said, that's exactly how I felt, but I didn't realise that this was going on, or I know something's wrong, but I don't know what it is. All these people who are encountering these issues, but they haven't had them diagnosed in order to be able to put within those statistics. It is so prevalent. There are people out there who want to listen, and there are people out there who can help.
I would want them to appreciate the devastation that their no longer being with us would cause to others, and for them to be able to see that.
If there is anybody who is having suicidal thoughts, passive, or if they've progressed beyond that stage, I implore you, just tell someone. It doesn't matter who it is. Because I can tell you with my hand on my heart, once you voice those thoughts, the power of them diminishes already. Just tell anyone.
If you're experiencing suicidal thoughts, you're not alone, and however intense those feelings are and however difficult it is to see a way forward, with someone to listen and with the right support, your feelings will change.
I think I'd want to say to her, and I thought about it at the funeral, I said, if only she could lift up the lid of the coffin and see the sea of faces. Of people, you know, really crying. They all cared for her. And we all did. If she could have seen it, and I'd say to her, they're all out there now. You're sitting there, Anna, now, but they're all there, willing to help. You're not alone. We all have these problems. We all feel life is shit sometimes. And sometimes worse. The answer isn't in the removal of life, it is in the promotion of life.
I hope that touched your heart as it did mine. I haven't seen it before. I just saw it now. But, you know, it's inspiring, and I hope this conversation continues after tonight. Just to say that I do a show. I tour a show called Say New World, and it tours next October. In the 100 times I've done it, in the second half, the audience are invited to say if they want to discuss those kind of deeper issues. They all stand up and talk. Sometimes it's 1,000, not everybody stands up, but they're not even embarrassed. We just don't have a place to meet where we can just be human, even before we get to mental illness. Just for, let's say, family members who are despairing or they don't know what to do. You know, there's something going on for teachers, for bereaved, for people that just, you know, are at the end of their tether at work. We really, from my belief, need a place to meet, to become human, where we can be vulnerable. Personally, I think we should open centers. I'm not saying like AA, but they're quite organized, where we can show our hearts, because unless we form a community, we're all alone. I know we say we're not alone, but that, believe me, I have depression. That's what it feels like. Half the cure is looking into somebody's eyes who has exactly the same thing you do. Then it takes the weight off your heart. Thanks.